Hello, welcome to this program. The title of the program is Learning Approach and Instructional Designing. I am Shutapa Bose. I teach at the School of Education, Indira Gandhi National Open University. In this program, we shall discuss the various approaches to learning and the corresponding process of designing instructions. Overview of the content. What are the things that we would be discussing during this program? We would begin with a discussion on approaches to learning, and after that the concept, the idea of instructional design, and after that we shall relate the approaches to learning and instructional designing. Coming to the term instructional designing, what is it? And instructional designing is basically a plan. Designing means planning. Instructional designing is a plan which is carried out, which is developed rather, for teaching in a systematic way. We set goals for teaching and we select learning experiences for attaining those goals. We design assessment mechanisms in order to ascertain whether the goals of teaching have been attained. And this is how we plan the entire process of teaching. Teaching becomes an accessible process, a goal-directed process, and the entire teaching learning process becomes systematic, a planned endeavor. Teaching and learning, as I said, become accessible and a systematic process. This was briefly about instructional designing, very briefly. Now coming to the question of learning. Instructional designing is carried out rather for teaching. And why do we teach? So that our learners learn. But then what is learning? There are different approaches to explain learning. 4 major approaches are there: behaviorism, cognitivism, constructivism and connectionism. But we shall discuss only the first 3 approaches, which are the well-known approaches to learning. Beginning with behaviorism. Learning as per behaviorists results in perceptible and long-lasting changes in behavior. It enables learners to exhibit new behavior. I'll give you an example. A child, when you ask her, what is your name? A very young child, she tells her name. When she is able to tell her name, we say that she is exhibiting a new behavior, a newly acquired behavior. And as she grows older and with practice, this behavior becomes a long-lasting behavior. There is a long-lasting change in her behavior. Whenever you ask her, what's your name? She would be telling her name. Therefore, there is a perceptible change in her behavior. Before the acquisition of this behavior, she was unable to tell her name. Following the acquisition of this behavior, she is in a position to tell her name. Therefore, there is a change in her behavior. And what sort of change is it? It is a long-lasting change. She would not forget her name under normal circumstances. After that, when she grows a little older, she can tell her address. This is yet again the acquisition of one more new behavior. She grows a little more older. She is in a school now. And she is able to state the reasons for evaporation. She can explain the process of evaporation. This again is a new behavior which she is demonstrating, she is exhibiting. What is the reason for this? The reason is that she has learnt the process of evaporation. Before that she had learnt her address, and prior to that she had learnt her name. She is in a college now and she can define an instructional design. She can describe the process of learning. These are all new behaviors. Behaviorism therefore says that learning is nothing but a perceptible change in behavior, and it is also a long-lasting change. How do people acquire a new behavior? We acquire a new behavior when we develop the capacity to respond to a particular stimulus. For example, the stimulus is, "What is your name?" This question is the stimulus, and the child is able to respond. She tells her name, and this response is getting associated with the stimulus, which is the question, "What is your name?" Therefore, stimulus has the power to elicit a response, and if these two are paired correctly, then there is learning. When I ask you, "What is your address?" Tell me your address. This is the stimulus. And you are able to respond correctly to the stimulus when you tell me your address. There is a pairing of stimulus and response. A child with practice would be able to tell her address correctly, but maybe not during the first instance. And after that, with practice, this change becomes a long-lasting change. A long-lasting change in behavior. This is what behaviorists say about learning. As I said at the very outset, that we shall try to link the approach to learning with instructional designing. If the approach to learning is behaviorist, what sort of instructional designing am I supposed to develop, to carry out? First of all, my belief would be that human behavior is controllable. I can control the process of learning. I can teach what I want to teach. And I can teach people what I want them to learn. If I want them to learn the process of evaporation, and if I teach it properly, they would be able to learn what is evaporation. If I want to teach people or a young child her name, I can control her behavior and make the child acquire a new behavior. Definitely, for bringing about a behavioral change, a teacher would be setting a goal. My goal is that the learner would be able to tell her name or her address or explain the process of evaporation, and the behavioral change that I seek, the attempts that I make, the inputs that I provide would all be goal-oriented. Suitable learning experiences can be provided. For example, when I am developing self-learning material for IGNOU's unit, the content that I select would be in keeping with the goal that I have set. My inputs, my choice of inputs would be guided by the goals that I have set. And of course, the readiness to learn. If I try teaching a 6-month-old baby to tell her name, her address, I would not succeed. If I try to make a 2-year-old child learn the process of evaporation, I would not succeed. Someone who has not yet learned the process of addition, if a teacher tries to teach her multiplication, she would not succeed. Therefore, readiness to learn and goals both are taken into consideration while selecting experiences. And then we structure the content, prepare small frames which are small chunks. You might have seen IGNOU's self-learning material, the units in the print medium. There are sections. To begin with, we have units. Within units, we have sections. Within sections, we have subsections. And these are interspersed with assessment exercises. This is how the entire content is structured. And then there is provision for practice, for drill, for exercise. If I am teaching alphabets to a child, I would have to make sure that she practices it every day. If I am teaching tables and I expect the child to demonstrate the ability to tell me the tables, practice, drill, exercise, these would be required. Therefore, we include assessment and we provide feedback. Why is feedback provided? That is because when the child finds or a learner finds that her responses are in keeping with what is supposed to be the correct response, her responses are reinforced. It is a sort of reward. For example, when the child says, well, this is the process of evaporation, and the teacher says, good, well done, her behavior is reinforced. A child comes on time every day to school. The teacher says, oh, she's so punctual. This reinforces her habit of coming to school on time. And I have to make sure that the inputs are contiguous. For example, I'm teaching a child shapes. I want to tell a child that, look, this is a round shape, this is square, this is rectangle. Then what I have to do is that after including a round shape, I have to write round there. I have to write rectangle after including an image which is rectangular. Supposing I'm teaching alphabets, A for apple. If on page 1 I have an image, a picture of apple, and on page 5 I write A, would it be helpful for learning? No. If I say that this is mango and I place an image of a mango and that's there on page 4, and on the 10th page I say mango, that would not be effective for learning. The two things, the image and the name, should come together. This is called contiguity. I have to place these two things together. For example, while driving a car, the instructor says that the signal is red, stop. After seeing that the signal is red, immediately the instructor says stop. There is no time lag between that. And when the signal turns green, the instructor says move. There is no time lag. Therefore, there is contiguity. We need to place these two things together. And this is how we program instructions. Programmed instructions are based on behaviorism. We have goals. You might have seen in IGNOU's units, we begin with instructional objectives. The content is structured into frames. There is scope for assessment, there is scope for practice, and there is feedback. This is how instructions are programmed. Now coming to the second approach, cognitivism. Unlike behaviorism, cognitivism says that learning is not a mechanical process. Just because the instructor says that, well, the signal has turned red, you need to stop, and we stop, and thereby we learn. A child tells her name 10 times and she learns that her name is Reena or Meena. It's not like that. There is thinking, cognition. Cognition means thinking. Until and unless we think, we would not be in a position to learn. As per cognitivists, learning is therefore not merely a behavioral change, but it is a mental process involving thinking. They also say that learning is a process of meaning making. For example, why does it snow in some regions? Why doesn't it snow in tropical regions? Why is there a lot of snowfall in some countries, but in most parts of India, there is no snowfall? While teaching it, I need to make sure that my learners understand the reasons why a particular place is cool, why tropics are warm, and there is no snowfall. Without understanding it, learning by rote would not lead to learning in true sense. This is what cognitivists say. For example, why it rains more in some regions. Learning the answer by rote would not help, because after taking the test, children would forget it. But if they understand that, well, it rains more at Cherrapunji, it rains more at some places, but it rains very less in Rajasthan. If they can understand the reasons, if they can make meaning from it, if learning is meaningful because they have been thinking about it, the learning would be retained. Rote learning is by learning without understanding. Trial and error. For example, I have a bunch of keys with me and I want to open a lock. I would try out one after another. And then the one that works, I would practice opening the lock a few times using that particular key, and thereby I would learn the use of that key. This is behaviorist way of learning. Now coming to the cognitivist way. Well, the lock is big, and in my bunch of keys there are small keys as well. There's no point in trying a very small key for opening a big lock. Therefore, there is a process of thinking, and I try with a bigger one. When there is meaning making, when there is understanding, learning is meaningful. Learning is information processing. I have the information about the size of the lock. I see, I look at it and make out it's a big lock. I look at my keys. Keys are of different sizes. So I have information, and now I process this information for meaning making. I receive stimulus, and through my sense organs, like with my eyesight or maybe by touching, I can make out the size of the lock. But it would not last for a long time. For example, a phone number. I remember it till I have used, and then after that I forget, because the phone number is not something meaningful to me. Whereas why it rains less in Rajasthan, I would never forget. Why it rains more at Cherrapunji, I would never forget. That's because the learning has been meaningful, and we need to create interest. On paying attention, the information is transferred from our short-term memory, like the phone number, which we have forgotten because we didn't pay attention to it, and which is also known as sensory register, the short-term memory. This has a limited capacity in terms of number of items that it can store. After we have used the telephone number, we no longer pay attention to it, and therefore we forget. Paying attention and relating it to past learning. I know from my past experience that a cactus has small leaves and more thorns. And I also know from my past learning experience that a desert receives low rainfall. Therefore, a cactus grows in deserts. A lotus would not grow there. When I have made meaning in this way, the information is stored in my long-term memory. That's because the information is now meaningful to me. It is stored there, but I can retrieve it as and when I require. But if I would have learnt by rote, then I would have lost it. Therefore, as per cognitivists, learning requires meaning making, understanding, and this is known as deep learning. The learning is deep, and unlike rote learning, we don't forget it so easily. But there is a similarity between what the cognitivists say and what the behaviorists say. What are the similarities? There are fixed goals. For cognitivists too, goals are important. Let me give you an example. A child has to explain the process of evaporation, or she has to name the plants that grow in a desert area, and she has to tell the reasons why these plants are suitable for desert area. These are the goals of learning, and the inputs in terms of learning experiences have been provided accordingly. However, before providing the inputs, we make sure that these inputs begin by anchoring the present learning to past learning. We try to help the learner relate what she knows with what she knew earlier, what she had learned earlier. Therefore, while teaching multiplication, we make sure that the child knows how to add. Maybe we could ask her to carry out exercises involving a few additions. After assessing that well, she has the readiness for it, we teach her the next logical step, which is multiplication. While multiplying, she uses additions repeatedly, and she understands that the process of multiplication is related to her past learning pertaining to addition. A child similarly knows about states of matter. She knows about the liquid state, about gaseous state, and how heat changes the state of matter. And therefore, when she explains the process of evaporation, she doesn't define evaporation on the basis of her rote learning. If she does that, there are chances of her forgetting the definition maybe after taking the test. But if she has understood the states of matter, if she has understood the role of heat in changing the state of matter, she can link the past learning and the new learning. And her new learning pertaining to evaporation would be linked to her past learning experiences, her past learning. And this is how new learning gets rooted to earlier learning, and a teacher has to help the learner recall or retrieve her earlier learning. There is scope for drill. Drill is very much important. It's not that meaning making does not require drill practice. Behaviorists put a lot of emphasis on drill. Cognitivists also say that learning involves meaning making, but it is not that we dispense with the need for drill. However, drill is not a mindless activity. If a child is made to engage in some activities, the activities should lead to meaningful learning. Drill is not mechanical in this case. A child has to think while carrying out the activities. Thinking is cognition, and therefore cognitivism. Cognitivists therefore believe in keeping the learners active and attentive while learning. If they have not understood something, we don't try to control their behavior. We try to facilitate meaning making. Therefore, we encourage questioning. And coming back to the point of drill, we may engage learners in problem solving. While solving problems, they are again making meaning. They search for meaning, and this is how they learn. Therefore, there are similarities between the cognitivist approach and the behaviorist approach, but the basic difference is that learning is not considered to be a mechanical process. What would be the implications for instructional designing? Instructional designing would again begin with goals, like an instructional designing which is linked to behaviorism. Learning experiences would also be selected in keeping with the goals, but the learning experiences should be such that prior learning is brought into the picture. And the learning experiences are such that the learner engages in thinking. You may include activities, you may ask them questions, you may engage them in problem solving. Therefore, while designing instructions for The cognitivist approach, we make sure to include such activities. You must have seen in IGNOU's self-learning material, the units, we include activities. There are thought-provoking questions. There are questions that probe learning, past learning, and there are also attempts to link what is going to be taught with what has already been taught. So this is how instructions are designed for cognitivism. Now coming to constructivism. As per this approach, learners construct knowledge. Knowledge is not given, it is not imparted, it is not delivered. Knowledge is acquired because it is constructed by learners. Unlike cognitivists, constructivists also say that learning is an active process. Learners remain active and they engage in thinking. Thinking is essential. Meaning making is essential, but what is the difference? Meaning making is subjective. For example, what to eat, what to wear, what decisions to take in life would depend on our choices, our value systems. And we cannot expect learners to arrive at the same meaning. There would be multiple realities. For some people, wearing a particular type of dress or behaving in a particular way is absolutely okay. But for some, it may not be so. Therefore, realities would be many. Of course, in science and mathematics, there are fixed solutions. But in social science, some people might say, we in India, we say that democracy is the best form of governance. But there are some countries where people may not think so. There could be societies where they have a different opinion about the system of governance. Therefore, what constructivists say is that there are multiple realities, meaning making being a subjective process. Social constructivists say that learning is a social process. Learning is not something which is carried out alone. For example, at a tailoring shop, an apprentice learns how to stitch clothes because he is in a social setting. He watches expert tailors stitch clothes and learns. In a teacher education college, learners watch how their teacher teaches and learn. Changing a flat tire, you may learn by watching, and then we discuss with our friends, with our relatives, with our family members and learn. Therefore, learning is a social process which is carried out best through discussions, negotiations, carried out within a social setting. Observation is also a means for learning. Social processes like discussions are therefore essential to learning. If you compare it with behaviorist approach, you would find that the social setting is not mentioned there. Therefore, what are the implications of constructivism for instructional designing? If you have an instructional design which conforms to social constructivism, you would include activities not only for problem solving but for collaborative problem solving. You would include the scope for discussions, debates, there would be teamwork, there would be situated learning with internship, there would be field work. And since we know that learning happens by observation, there would be lab work. Students would watch demonstrations and learn the laboratory activities. Assessment takes into account subjectivity. No particular answer is considered to be a fixed answer. There could be multiple realities. Context becomes very important. For example, if a child is from a particular area where there is scarcity of water, she would say that I don't use more than 3 buckets of water in a day. Whereas a child who is from an area with plenty of water, there are ponds, there are rivers, her answer would not be focusing on 2 or 3 buckets of water. And you cannot say that a child who is responding using 2 or 3 buckets of water is wrong, or this child is wrong, because there are ponds, there are rivers close to her home. We take into account the context. We take into account the subjectivity which emerges from the context. And this is how instructional designing is carried out, and assessment therefore is not based on fixed responses, unlike in behaviorism. We have discussed 3 main approaches to learning: behaviorism, cognitivism and constructivism, and the implications of these approaches to learning for designing instructions. With this, I would say that when we design instruction, we also take into account the approach to learning, and cognitivism and constructivism being more contemporary approaches to learning, it is better to design instructions for learning as learning in teams, learning through collaborative activities, and learning through the process of meaning making, not just through mindless drill and practice. Thank you.